Hey, it's Joey Beans, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. So, pretty casual, video today. Very similar to my talk video where I talked about my web comic idea, but this time I'll be talking a little bit about college-related stuff, right? So, I wanted to talk a little bit about what I've learned when it comes to portfolios and applications, which I wouldn't say that this is necessarily a really great guide. Plus, with the information that I have, things might have changed over the years. Who knows, right? Maybe there's different processes. Plus, for art related colleges and stuff, I know that LaSalle and NAFA are also going to be conjoined together into the University of the Arts. So I don't quite know how long term this sort of advice would be. I don't quite know. But I will share what I've learned and what I know just throughout this process of my own applications and stuff. So one thing I've learned when it comes to portfolios, we'll talk about that first. And portfolios, it's quite interesting. There's a lot of different resources on portfolios and what to put in your portfolio and what kind of stuff people might look for. But generally, I think a good, what would be kind of a good spread just for, I guess, for LaSalle, based on what I know, is that you could have a pretty varied portfolio on different types of artworks, usually your best work or works that you're super proud of, but a variety is quite cool. I know my DC friend had different types of illustrations that they've done, from their sort of nerdy little fan, I wouldn't say fan art because they didn't show their fan art, it's all original stuff, but stylized almost. They actually had anime-esque inspired works in their portfolio for design communication, which is interesting. But that's what they told me, at least. But they did also have other types of works, other mediums, almost realism-esque charcoal drawings, paints and markers and other types of illustrative works. It's interesting because they went into design communication without giving a design portfolio. They actually gave a more illustrative portfolio. But I'll talk about how that worked out for them when I get to the application process. But yeah, general variety, I guess, of your best works is one thing that you could look at for your portfolio. Secondly, process, actually. So one thing I've learned from my friends, when it comes to LaSalle, is that they like to do something called a creative process journal, or they call it the CPJ. I don't know if the animation department still does CPJs. I know design communication still does, based on my friend. But having a process, showing your process in your portfolio, is also not a bad idea too. So basically, the process of your artwork from the the sketch and ideation phase, and then the step-by-step of maybe you had the sketch, and then you do the line art, and then you do the base color, and then the cleanup, and those types of processes that actually kind of go into how you created the piece would also be another good thing to have. Let's see. But I think those are just some very general portfolio tips. There's probably a lot more detailed stuff online in places, especially on YouTube. And I think ultimately it does come down to how how you explain your work and how you justify it, which I'm gonna go into the application process part now, which is mostly just like, the whole like interview part. And again, this is based off of my some of my friends' experiences, so it might differ from person to person. So going into the application, right, if you are in Singapore and you are going to apply to LaSalle College of the Arts, they might do a group interview, which I think was what my friend did when it came to their portfolio and stuff. So what they did was they would lay down their artworks on a table and for a display for the interviewers to go look at and browse their works. And eventually once they kind of like do that, they have everybody sit in a circle because it's a group interview, right? So they have different groups of people in a circle, and they would actually have you talk about one work from your portfolio. And so then you'd have to be able to actually talk about your pieces, which is super important as well, because when you are trying to apply for like these sort of art schools, right, you want to be able to explain and actually talk about your work. It's one thing to just showcase it nicely and all that. It's nice, that you have great presentation, but if you can't explain your work, then it might be then it's definitely going to be a little bit difficult, right? Because especially when you're working with clients or just like your employer, you have to be able to justify and explain your ideas. So you don't have to be like super amazing at it, but you still have to be able to do some level of explanation. Sorry about my chair squeak. But yeah, and going back to like my design communication friend, right? Like they had a lot of like anime-esque like drawings, right? Like I mentioned that earlier in the portfolio part of this little video. They made it through the interview process also because they were able to explain why they were going to join design communication, which, again goes back into if you're able to justify and explain properly what you are, what your work is and why you're going into the field that you want to go to, then you might, do pretty well, which, easier said than done, right? To explain your ideas. Like even I have difficulty explaining my ideas and explaining what I think and why I want to do something. It's really hard, but it's very important, I guess, to practice it when you can, and it's very important also to try and be confident when you're talking about it, right? So like if you're going into like animation, but you've never really, your portfolio doesn't have anything that's like super like animation because maybe you're new at it, just like me, then you'd have to be able to explain why you still want to go into animation despite it, right? Which, sometimes the reasoning is as simple as you're there to learn, because you want to learn something new and you want to be able to develop new skills and broaden your horizon. And I think that's also something you can say in an interview, I guess, if they ask you. I know that's what my design communication friend said. Okay, you didn't hear it from me, but they said when they're asked why did you go to design communication instead of animation because your work is more appropriate for animation, they said, oh, but I kind of want to learn more and broaden my horizons, is what they said. Which I think is very fair to say. So, but bottom line is that you do have to be very confident with the things that you're saying. Know your work and know yourself. I think that would help you very much. And speaking of confidence, right? It's not just interviews that you have to be confident in. You also have those like exams, right? So I have some animation friends in LaSalle, and they did the examination test instead of the interview. So I don't know exactly how much I can say about what happened. Oh, the birds. I don't know how much I can say when it comes to what they did during the exam process, but what I can say is that you do have to be able to think on the spot. That's like the advice I am saying right now, is practice your confidence to justify your ideas, and also practice your thinking. Because like, say for example, they give you, because you're drawing on the spot, right? You don't have a lot of preparation and to kind of like think about how you're going to present ideas, or think about how you're going to let's say they ask you to draw a specific a singular item, right? Let's say they ask you to draw a square, but you know, there's different ways you could maybe draw a square. You know, you can make it in 3D, you could draw it as a cube, or maybe you can draw it with like different different types of lines, or like shading. And it's like, you'd have to really push yourself in your thoughts to be able to kind of come up with a variety in different ways. So quick thinking, I guess it's easier said than done to develop your quick thinking, but I think it's a lot of practice when it comes to idea generation for your brain. But definitely, I think when it comes to like the applications, like whether you take the exams or the or the interview, be confident, and also like be confident and make sure that you are able to generate your ideas. So be very careful to not be stuck in those like exams. I know that my mother, for example, she didn't go to LaSalle. She went to a different university in the Philippines, but she also did an exam when she was getting into the fine arts department to learn interior, because that's how it was when she was in university. And she failed her the exam the first time because she was so nervous. I cannot stress enough to be confident in these things, because it will really help you to ease your nerves, to be able to actually come up with ideas, and also to, again, justify and explain and be able to talk about things, which is super, super important. I guess like that's just general advice at this point. I don't have so much of like the specifics, since I'm also still going through these sort of processes to learn them myself, but that's like the advice that I have and the things that I would like to share with you guys. Just some general pointers. I think like personally, what you decide to do with your portfolio and how you decide to go about the interviews and stuff, it might differ from like other places, you know, other universities, other schools, etc. But these general advice, I think, is still pretty important to take note of regardless of where you go to. So yeah, that's just all. This is kind of like just a short little talk thing. It's not really meant to be super, super in-depth. Just some general advice from me to you based on what I have learned. But yeah, that's all I have to say. I won't keep you here, okay? So I'll see you guys in the next video. Bye!